Welcome back to lesson number 4 in the color page. So today we are going to talk about something very important, which is how do we conform an XML timeline. So conforming an XML timeline. Now, what is an XML? The XML and the AAF are two very popular file types used to migrate timelines between different softwares. So meaning that, say, you are doing color grading inside of DaVinci Resolve, but you did your editing inside of Media Composer. Now what you want to do, you want to take that timeline, that finished edited timeline from Media Composer, and then take it back into Resolve for final color grading and finishing. So now we are going to talk about how the conforming an XML timeline works, and we're going to start by importing the XML timeline. So the first thing I'm going to do here, I am going to right click and say import project, and then we're going to find our project. So in this case, for me, it's going to be this one, Age of Airplanes, GRP, which stands for DaVinci Resolve project. I'm going to click open, and that opens our project. Okay, so now that takes a minute, and now we can see that our project is here. Now I'm going to double click and come into my project. As you can see, I'm here on my media pool here because this is the best place to import things. However, you can always go here on your edit. And the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to look at, in fact, is if I look at my timelines, my video, references, graphics, audio, there's really nothing, because all we did here was to import the DRP file, the DaVinci Resolve project, but we don't have media and we don't have a timeline. So we want now that edited timeline. We're going to import that XML, and which contains our edited timeline, and then import the media as well, and now have all of that available to us in the DaVinci Resolve 18, right? So to take it for color grading. So now let's do that. So first thing I'm going to do here, I am going to click here on timelines, and then I am going to go here on file. Then I am going to go and import here, and then I'm going to say here timeline. Alternatively, you have the shortcut here, which is Shift-Command-I if you want to go shortcuts. So I'm going to click that, and now we're going to find our XML. So in this case, for me, it's over here. If you're having a drive or anywhere like that, you can just find your XML. Just that is the file format, XML over there. So I'm going to take this one, and then I'm going to say open. Okay. So now this dialog load XML here, dialog box opens up, and you can see that we have a few parameters and a few different things. So now for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to keep it the same. One thing that I want to pay attention to here is this ignore file extensions when matching, okay, which basically this allows us to choose media that has a different file format from the original timeline, okay, from the original timeline media, provided that the file names are the same. So why is this important? This can be very useful when you're switching between an offline and online workflows. So if you have proxies, etc. So that type of workflow. So we will learn about this very, very soon. But anyway, so I'm not going to check anything else. I'm going to keep everything the way it is in this checkbox over here. Even this automatically set project settings, automatically import clips into the media pool, and then I am going to click OK. And then now it tells you here 14 out of 14 clips were not found yet. This could happen if the file path is different, if there was some renaming, if there is really that is something that can happen as well. So what we want to do is now go manually in and find the location where our files are stored. Okay, so that's pretty self-explanatory. So now it says here, do you want to select another folder to search? I'm going to say yes in this case. Then I'm going to go on my media 1, which is the media I'm care about. So now I'm going to go on my training here. I'm going to find my project, which for me, it's right here, over here. And we are going to start with the low Q transcodes, which is the videos that we want to import in this case, and then I'm going to say here OK. And now it says 6 out of 14 clips were not found yet. So now we found our video clips, but now we need to find our audio clips as well. So I'm going to click again, do you want to select another folder to search? Say yes again, and then I'm going to come here and say audio this time, and I'm going to say OK. Now 2 out of 14 clips were not found yet. So now these are clips that this time I'm going to say no, because in this specific lesson, this tutorial, basically what's happening is that if you renamed some of the clips, okay, from their original file names, then there is a mismatch there, and it'll be harder for Resolve to configure that. But I'm going to show you later how we go around that specific problem. So now I'm going to say no over here, and now we can see we also have a log here that tells us basically here in green, start importing, blah, 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 gives you all the information, and then see these are the two clips that says file was not found in the search directories, okay, so for these two. So this is our log over here. Okay, so perfect. Now we have our timeline, as you can see here, and this is our fully imported XML file here, as you can see, and these are the two clips that I was just discussing, the two that we're missing in this case. So now what I want to do is to come to my folders here. So I'm gonna go like that. Actually, I'm gonna keep in list view, and then I am going to open here my different folders, and obviously this is my timeline. So what I want to do is take my XML here, timeline, right? So these are all the different folders, but I want to sort of organize everything because so far nothing is organized. You can see that everything is here on the master. So I am going to take my XML here, timeline, and then drag that into my timelines folder here. Then I am going to take some of the audio clips over here, which are this one. Then I'm going to take this audio clip over here, then this audio clip over here, and then drag them into the audio over there. Right, as you can see. And now you can see that we're starting to organize things a little bit better. And finally, I am going to take my MOV files here, right? And I'm going to click that one. I'm going to click this one. I'm going to click this one, basically all of them, all my MOVs, and then take them into my LQ transcodes over here. I have another audio file here. You see now one, I'm going to take into my audio. And now we can see that we have all of our different assets, okay, into each folder, as you can see over here. Perfect. And we did that very, very easily, as you can see. Now I'm going to come here on my media pool over here, as you can see. And now that we've organized everything, we are going to sync an offline reference. Okay, so now basically with the XML timeline imported, so you want to have a offline reference because say you did the migration process, but you want to ask the editor to give you that offline reference because you want to see what was the last cut. So how was the edit, the log picture, so you can compare that to your migrated XML file. That way you can see or know if there was any mismatch or anything that happened, which is things that could happen. So you want to make sure that by looking at your reference, offline reference, everything is matched and everything is correct. And you want to do this before you start doing any work, which is actually very, very important, right? So now on my media file here, on my media, what I'm going to do, I am going to come into my references here, and we're going to import my reference. So in this case, I'm going to go back to my media one, and I'm going to find where that reference clip is. So in this case, say you ask the editor for the reference, so you would have in a folder where you, right, give it the name of reference. So in this case over here, it's going to be under other, and we can see that this is our, you can see the name here, Age of Airplane reference, as you can see right over there. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to drag that and bring it into my reference folder. So now you can see it's right over here. I'm also going to go like that. All right. So if in case you feel like you don't see very well with the here with all the different thumbnails, you can always come to this view, list view, right? So now we can see and see a little better. Perfect. So now with that done, we have a reference as well. But what I want to do now is to come to my edit over here. Perfect. And we want to compare our reference, offline reference, with what we have here in our timeline. So let's do that very quickly. So obviously this is our clip over here. And what I'm going to do now, I am going to come here and I am going to uncheck this live media preview, because if you had other clips, then would, by hovering over, would live preview everything. And then I'm going to change this from source over here, the drop down, I'm going to change it to offline. So we should have an offline. Now I can take my reference that I just imported and drag it here. And now you can see that our reference, right, that we want to match to our timeline, okay, so this is our timeline over here. So we are trying to match our reference to our timeline here, as I said again, to see if nothing is mismatched and everything is correctly imported. Okay, the XML is right. So we can see though that you have this media offline. And why is that happening? Like, I mean, what is wrong with this? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a little more space here. I'm going to look at the start time code, and I can see that here starts at 000. But on the timeline here, you can see that it starts at 1 hour, which is very common when you're editing. However, when you export a file, then you have it at 0. So now these two are mismatched. The actual time code is mismatched. As you can see, start time code is at 0 hours, and here starts at 1 hour. So now let's match that very, very quickly and very, very easily. So what I'm going to do now on my Age of Airplanes reference, I am going to right click here, and I'm going to come on my clip attributes. On my clip attributes here, can't even say it, I'm going to go on time code here. Now on the current frame, you can see that here it starts at 0 hours. I am going to change that to match it to my timeline here. So I am going to say instead 0.01. So starts at 1 hour. So I'm going to then click OK. And now, ba-bam, magic. Now we can see that our reference is loaded here in our source viewer, and this is our timeline. So now if you play the clips, now why you did all these steps, it's because, I'm going to reiterate it one more time for people that are not understanding it. You are taking your offline reference to compare it to the timeline that you imported, the XML file that you imported, and you're doing all of that because you want to make sure there is no mismatches, nothing went wrong, there was no corruption, there was no problems with the migration of the XML timeline from, say, Media Composer to DaVinci Resolve 18, and you want to make sure that everything is perfect as the editor intended it to be. And then after you look at that, then finally you can start all the different processes after color grading, etc., all the other different steps. So that is basically the steps that you want to take when you are conforming a timeline, at least when you import a timeline and then find your offline reference just for matching. So these are very, very important, and these are steps that it's highly suggested to everyone to make sure that everything is correctly imported. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I am going to, as we discussed earlier, going to now add this credits clip here, right? Because we can see that it's in red, so we obviously need to add our credits. And I'm going to go to the media page over here, and here where we have our clips imported, obviously I can come here into my graphics because that's what the credits are. And obviously you will have to find where the clip is. In this case, the credits MOV is here, and I am just going to drag it and drop it here into my credits, okay, to my credits bin here. And now I can go back to my edit, and you can see that it automatically now linked the clip that we just imported with the credits here in our timeline, and it's just as easy as that. And now if I play
in this film, making a documentary about how the airplanes changed.
Okay, so now there is one major issue, which is that obviously audio levels are not conformed from, say, your editor edited in a specific way, or they played a little bit with a gain. So these are not conformed with your timeline once you import it into Resolve. So in this case, just for the tutorial, we are going to mute this. Okay, so that's going to be muted. And you also alternatively have this option here to dim. Okay, so it allows you to dim it by a tiny bit, by 20 decibels. But we're going to mute it in this case, just like that. And we are going to now go through the clips and see what the conforming stage really is about. Now, once again, we have our reference image here, our reference clip that we've added, okay, on our left, and then here our timeline. Now, another thing to notice here, as you could see immediately, is the fact that the clips are very different from each other in terms of color. That is happening because this is a Rec 709 export, while this one instead is still in log. Okay, so that's how the camera captured the image. That is something that will be fixed later on at a later stage when we will go through color management, and I will show you how you can fix that. Okay, so now let's quickly see how we can actively now perform the conforming stage. Okay, so I'm going to start playing the clips with no audio because it's too distracting right now, and we can see that things match so far. And then going through the clips, there we go. We can see that there is a discrepancy between these two clips. Okay, so in our reference clip, you can see that we have a much wider shot of this plane in the airport, while in our timeline here, we have a tighter shot of the plane in the airport. Now, obviously, this is not matching, and it is our job now to conform that and to make sure that we have the clip just like the editor intended it, which is this shot right here. Okay, so that is why it's so important to have your reference movie clip. okay, and making sure that things match. So now, obviously, let's do that. I am going to arrow up. So I'm on the edge of this clip, and now I am going to come here. I'm going to open we are basically going to go through our clips over here. And what I'm going to do now next is that we can see that this clip over here, it's called the aerial 02, okay, SFO 02, and this is 01. So these are two different clips. So what we want to do is import this clip, okay, and then substitute this clip right here, this tighter shot, with what our reference clip is showing here. So to do that, in order to do that, I'm going to come again in my media over here, and we are going to go into our video here, and I'm going to open the LQ over here, transcodes, okay, so low quality transcodes, and I am going to go here on my other. As you can see, we're ready here, by the way, and the next thing I'm going to do is come to other LQ transcodes, and you can see that now we have a few clips here. I am going to go in list view so it's easier for you to see it, and then I'm going to extend this, and you can see that is the clip that we're looking for. As you can see, here's aerial SFO 02, and just to confirm, if you come here, you can see that that's aerial SFO 02. So I'm going to come back to my media over here, and now all I'm going to do is to drag and drop this into this bin right here, and you can see that we added the clip right over here. And now I can go back into my edit page, all right, and then look for that clip, which is this one right here, okay, aerial SFO 02. That is why it's so important to have your data burn in. This is called the burn in, okay, in your clips, because you can make sure, okay, to see the clip name and have all the parameters available to you. So you are basically sure that you're looking for the right clip. Perfect. So now with that done, I'm going to go back here. I can change it to thumbnail just in case. And I can also obviously make it bigger just in case. And what I'm going to do with that now selected, I am going to come here over in my clip that I want to substitute. I'm going to right click here, and to substitute now this clip, which is this one, with this, I've selected this one. I right click on this, and then I am going to choose this option here, which says conform lock with media pool clip. And once I do that, look what happens. Now, what has happened here is that the clip we previously had, okay, that more closer, tighter shot, got replaced with the clip we selected here, okay, in our LQ transcodes. Just like that. I right click, and then I said conform lock with media pool clip. Just like that, you're able to basically replace your clips. And this is a very effective way to go about it. Another thing to consider, other than substituting clips in your timeline from your reference image or reference clip in this case, you also want to look for transitions and effects. Okay, so now what we're going to do next is we are going to fix translation errors that can occur. Okay, just as we said throughout the migration process, these are things that can occur. So it's really imperative for you to fix those things. So what we're going to do next, I'm going to go into this other clip over here. So our third clip, you can always remember to navigate with your up and down arrows. Okay, so I'm going to come to this third clip over here. And what we're going to do now, I am going to check, okay, if these two clips match in terms of what is their scaling, maybe they've been repositioned, right? So we're going to look into that as well. Now, Resolve does allow you to do that, and a quick way to do it is to right-click into your timeline viewer over here. You can right-click, and you can see that you have a few different options, right? So you see this drop-down. So the one I am going to click right now is going to be this horizontal wipe over here. And this allows you now to wipe between the two clips. Now, you can see here it kind of inverted the order, where up to now we've been having our reference clip, okay, in our left, and then our timeline clip in our right. But here, once I click that, you can see that now we have our timeline clip here on the left and our reference clip on the right. And you can easily now, okay, with the wipe, the horizontal wipe, you can wipe between them. Now, it's very evident, you can see it, that obviously the editor in this case has been definitely resizing the clip. Okay, we could see that this clip definitely, it's a much tighter shot than this one right here. Okay, so now what you want to do in the conforming stage, once again, is to adjust that and to match it, because there is obviously a very strong mismatch here. So let's quickly do that. So I'm going to right click in the viewer here, and instead of using the horizontal wipe, we are going to use the difference. Okay, so now what the difference does, it basically put both clips on top of each other, and this way you're able to really see, I can zoom in here, you're able to see both clips and sort of align them better this way. Okay, so that could facilitate your job, as you can see over here. By pressing Z, by the way, you fit it to your screen over here. Okay, so I'm gonna select the clip now, and I am going to come into the inspector, and you can see that now we have only this clip over here. And now let's adjust it and match the two clips. So the first thing we're going to do, obviously, we are going to zoom in, because there's definitely been, the clip is definitely zoomed. So we are going to go closer. This is a little too much. Maybe to something like that. Okay. And then what we want to do, now that we've done the zoom, we have a much closer match. We are going to align them a little better. So we can do that with our position. You have the X position and you have the Y position. So now with the Y, I am going to go down up to, up to when they match exactly, which in this case, now you can see that the image is black and it's telling me that both clips are matched. See, if I move it up, you can see that is a mismatch there, but then you go down up to the point where it's a perfect match. It's like that in this case. Perfect. So now we can close the inspector. We have both images. And now to go back to the viewer, you can just right click again and then go back to no wipe. And now if you look at the reference clip here and if you look at the timeline clip that we've just adjusted, now they're perfectly matched. Okay, so we adjusted for it. Perfect. So once that is done, I can now go through my timeline and we are going to scroll to the next clip, which is this one, media offline. Okay, so just as we discussed earlier in the tutorial, not every clip was imported. Okay, so now what is happening here, I am going to zoom in, is that we are missing a few clips. So in this case, we're going to go back to our media over here, all right, just like we did earlier, and we are going to import the clips that we're missing. So in this case, I am going to go here in the other clip, as you can see over here, and then in the other LQ transcodes, we have two other clips. I am going to also change it to the thumbnail view here, and this is the Arial SFO02 I imported earlier. We're going to import these two clips into our LQ transcodes. So I am going to command click both and then just drop them into our LQ transcodes bin over here. Now I can switch back to my edit over here. Okay, perfect. Now the next thing I want to do, now that we imported them, is come here to this clip, the red clip. I'm going to right click here, and where you see here conform lock enabled, I am going to check that. So if it's effectively going to disable the conform lock. And once I do that, and we are going to come closer, you can see that we have this sort of bar here, this sort of badge that's telling us there is an error. So what we're going to do is double click that, and that brings the conflict resolution window, which is basically telling us that there is a conflict resolution between two clips. They're matching their metadata, their time code. So what we're going to do is between these two, basically you are telling Resolve which one do you want to select, which one do you want to insert in this position, right? In this, the one over here. Now by looking at our reference, you can see that it's the one with the water. So what we're going to do is select this one, okay? And then you're going to say change. And once you do that, now you selected the clip and effectively matched it to your reference. Okay, perfect. Now what you want to do, now you can see you have the badge still down here. I am going to right click again over here. And then what you're going to do is conform lock enabled. So now you can see that the badge disappeared and we basically enabled our conform lock and we fixed the issue. So now if I go back and we play the clips, now we can see that we are effectively matched. Okay, once again, do not worry about the mismatching in color. As I explained earlier, that's because this was exported in Rec 709 and this is still in log. If you guys go through the book, to these exercises that I'm going through, they also explain all of that, which I highly suggest to do. Anyway, so now we are going to go through the next clips, okay? And we are going to play this clip over here. Okay, that's a little loud, so let's take the volume that's muted and let's see. And there we go. So look at the second clip over here. That is definitely a mismatch. So look at that. All right, so this is mismatched. So what we're going to do, you can see that the eyes here are still sort of closing, and here they're already closed. So there is 100% of, it's tiny, but it is mismatched, as you can see. And that's how it starts. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to arrow in between both of them, and we're going to fix that. So what we're going to do is come here, and in the, once again, the selections we have here, we're going to go into the mix wipe, okay? And now we are going to use a different tool. We're going to come here on our tools. Obviously, up to now, we've been using the selection mode, which is shortcut is A, as you could see in the screen. And we are going to change to the trim edit mode, okay, with the shortcut T. Now, if you guys want to know more about editing and all of those techniques, there is also a playlist about the editing in DaVinci Resolve that you could watch and goes much more in detail about that. Okay, so perfect. Now I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, do something like that. And I am going to come here. And now what we're going to effectively do, this tool allows you to do sliding and slipping your tools, right? Trimming, right? So ripple, editing. So you have all those different options that you don't have when you're using the selection mode. Now I am going to come here and match it exactly to the clip before. See? Up to where we know it's exactly matched. Now if you go like that, see it's now matching. So as you can see, we are right here. Perfect. So now we have an exact match between the two clips. There we go. Perfect. As you can see. See? And you could do that with that. And then once again, you can come here and then say no wipe. And then you come back to your just regular no wipe option over here. Perfect. And that's that. And then you can keep going through your clips. So obviously that is matched. And that's the next clip. Okay. So one thing to be aware here, obviously there is a different color between the two clips. Now something to understand is that there is few reasons why things might look different from the reference clip to your timeline. It's because, as I explained earlier, first of all, the reference clip might be exported in Rec 709, okay, and your timeline clip is still in log. Another difference is that maybe the editor, cinematographer, or director, right, they applied a LUT lookup table into the clip, and which is also a pretty common thing to do in the process, and that is why a mismatch could happen. So for now, that is good, and then we're gonna go through the next clip, which is matched, and the next clip, and then we have our credits. So that is a few things that you want to consider, okay? So you want to, obviously, we started by substituting clips, then we did some translation errors, things such as rescaling, okay, which was crucial here. Then we obviously had to add our clips, all right? And then really fix a few frames, really match the reference to our timeline. Now that we've done all of that, the next step is for us to finally work with the high quality footage, because so far we've been working with the low quality footage. Now, why is that important? High quality footage becomes essential when you start processes like VFX and color grading, compared to low quality footage, which is optimal for an editor that is mainly focused on the narrative arc of the story. So now let's link it to the high quality footage, and let me show you how easy that is. Perfect. So now I'm gonna quickly change this now to the list view here. And what we're going to do now, obviously you can see the in video V1, in this track right here, everything is low quality. So I am going to go at the beginning here, And before I do anything though, I am going to go in the timelines here. You can see that this is the airplanes 01 LQ timeline. So this is the low quality timeline. So before we proceed, you always want to make sure to have a backup. So you're going to right click here and say duplicate timeline. And now what you can do is you can see that this is renamed as a copy. So all we're going to do, since this is going to be the high quality, we can keep the same exact name, just change here from the L here for low quality, we're going to change it to high quality, just like that. Then we can double click it. And now you can see that this is we've loaded now the high quality timeline over here. Okay, so that's what we want to work with. And you can easily then switch up between the two. Okay, so that's the one we want to do right now. Perfect. Now that we've done that, the next step is going to be I am going to come to my high quality time. You can see here, transcodes over here. You can see that is empty because all we did, as I said, was the low quality transcodes that we've been working so far with. All right, so I'm going to come here. And the next step is to highlight all the different clips except for the credits here. So just the clips that we're working with, okay? And because we're going to add the HQ instead of the LQ. And what we're going to do, I am going to right click and we're going to say conform lock enabled. We are going to check that. So basically now allows us to then bring in the high quality footage instead of the low quality ones. Perfect. Now that we've done that, I can come here to file and then we can go to reconform from media storage right over here. So we can click that. All right. And then this checkbox opens up here. And then you can go back and find where your clips are. So in this case, I'm going to open this and I'm going to find where all the clips are really quick, which is going to be right over here. And then we're going to go to high quality transcodes because that's the one we want right over here. Perfect. And then here, what I'm going to say, attempt to reconform, instead of all clips, we're going to say selected clips because these are the clips that we've selected, remember, in the timeline. Okay, so that's the clips that we want to attempt to reconform from in the timeline. And then the next step here, we're going to uncheck this timecode over here. And next, we are going to check the file name, okay, tight file name match. And then we can keep the rest just the way it is. And then all you have to do is then click OK. And then Resolve takes a minute. And now we have finally added our high quality footage. But now the question might be, how do I know that this is the high quality footage? Are we sure that that is it? So what we're going to do, just to be sure that that is the high quality footage, I am going to come here on my high quality transcodes. Okay, and I am going to press Command A to select all of them. Then you can right click on whatever clip, one of the clips over there. And then what we can do is to basically trick it and help us figure out if this is working or not. We're going to just go on clip color. We're going to change it to a color that we want. So in this case, we're going to make it yellow. Okay, so now why did I do that? And why is it shown in the book, this exercise? It's because now you can see that by changing the color yellow, it's going to show you in the timeline all the clips that are yellow are basically the clips that are the high quality transcodes, which in this case, it's all of them. So now this, the yellow ones, is telling me that all the clips that we have here are now the high quality clips. Okay, so that is just as simple as that. As a final step, what you want to do finally is to right click again, and you are going to once more, just like as we explained earlier, you are going to conform lock enabled right over here. And once you do that, now they'll conform it's enabled, and we are now have added our high quality clips into our timeline. This is a very useful technique, okay, because it allows you to go through, right? You don't have to create an XML again and then go through like the file path and all that sort of stuff. So you clearly substituted everything in the timeline, just like that. All right, perfect. So now that we've explored and we've done that, we've linked it to the high quality footage as well. The next step now, it's going to be to work in a color managed timeline. To set up the color management, it's very easy. We can come here to the wheel over here. And then here on color management, you can see that we have all the different options available to us. But before I do that, it's important to understand that there is two approaches to color management. The first one, it's referred to as a display referred color management approach, in which the colorist gets the log footage and then it's manually correcting that footage to get it to the ideal starting point. Now, that is a very individual approach in the sense that you are not giving Resolve an input color space, you're not giving Resolve a color profile, but the colorist is manually doing that itself, which can be, as I said, very subjective. The second approach is to use a scene referred color management approach, in which now you are telling Resolve what the input color space is going to be and a color profile, and Resolve will automatically do all the calculations and math to convert your starting footage, so in this case this log clip or timeline, in this case, convert it to your preferred output color space, which in this case it's going to be Rec 709. So let's see how that works. So if you come here to your wheel, the first thing you're going to see is probably this. It's going to look like this for you, but you can just come here to your color management and you can see you have your color science. Now in color science, this is the DaVinci YRGB by default. We're going to change it to DaVinci YRGB color managed. Okay, so now the viewer changes a bit, but there is not much to see here because all we have is your color processing mode, which in this case, if you have HDR footage or SDR, so in this case, we're going to keep it to SDR, because we don't have any HDR deliverable. And then you have your output color space, available to you. So in this case, it's set up to SDR Rec 709, right? So pretty standard over there. All right, sweet. So now by doing that, and once you do that, you can see that nothing has happened. In fact, this timeline clip over here does not look like our reference clip. Why is that? This is happening because once we imported the clip earlier, it was not under your color managed DaVinci YRGB color managed color science, rather in your DaVinci YRGB. So we have to tell here our clips, we have to give it an input color space to read it properly. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to go on the HQ transcodes, which in this case are the clips that we have in our timeline over here. And you can press Command A to select all of them. You can right click here, and then you can see that you have a few different options. The one we care about is the input color space here. Okay, so now we're going to give it an input color space. So which camera was this shot with? Those clips. So we are going to scroll down to, we know that is Blackmagic, and with Blackmagic specifically, you can see that other cameras, they're very limited, as you can see here, but with Blackmagic you have so many different options. The one that we're interested in is the Blackmagic Design Film Generation 1, and once we do that, look at the timeline clip, it automatically converted that to our desired output color space, which in this case was the Rec 709. And you can see that by scrolling our clips, now both clips match, okay? And that's because we did our conversion to our desired output, as I was saying, okay? So very nice. So something else that I wanted to point out here is that might happen to you, right? Where you still converted it to a Rec 709, however, it does not look right on your monitor. Maybe it's a little bit flat. That's because if I uncheck here the automatic color management, okay, and we are going to change this to Rec 709 Gamma 2.4, okay, over here, which is your standard, but a lot of monitors and displays, they actually output in Rec 709 Gamma 2.2. So by checking this, you'll probably have the correct saturation and the correct image outputted on your monitor. Okay, so that is something to be aware of. Perfect. So now another thing that I wanted to point out is that if you're using a Mac display, especially the newer Mac displays, you might want to output your output color space here to a P3. So might want to change that to your P3 D65. Okay, and something else you want to do is use separate color space and gamma. Okay, so on one hand we have our color space and then the gamma, and we're going to change the gamma here to an sRGB. Okay, so if you're using, as I said, the newer Mac displays, this is the output color space that would work for you, the P3 D65 sRGB. You always want to check right? You can go on your system preferences on your Mac and make sure that would match with the monitor you have. But for the newer ones, this should work. Okay, perfect. So now in this case, I am going to uncheck that, and we are going to change this again to a Rec 709 Gamma 2.4, and I am going to check the automatic color management. So this is what we get. Perfect. Now, something else to be aware is that it might have happened to you, if not to all of you, some of you at least, where you are grading your footage, okay, on inside of Resolve, and then you realize once you export it and look at it on Safari or QuickTime that the export looks completely different. The colors look very different for what you were grading. Now that is happening because if you're working with a Mac, this is for Mac users, you have to set that up. Now you can go here on your DaVinci Resolve and then open your preferences, and inside of your preferences, okay, so this is the first thing you're gonna do. You're gonna go on general here, and then you can see that is something called here use Mac display color profiles for viewers. Now this would allow you to would allow DaVinci Resolve to correctly display the color profiles. Okay, because what's happening is that the Mac system has a color sync internal color management system, okay, and DaVinci Resolve being a third-party system does not read that. Okay, so that is why that is happening. But now by checking that, it allows DaVinci Resolve to basically output and display the correct image. Okay, so always make sure that this is always checked in. Now you're gonna click save and the problem should be solved. Perfect. Now another thing I want to talk about to conclude the tutorial, and this is in the book, so things that we are explaining here, is the output color space. Now the other advantage of using a scene referred color management approach is the fact that you, by the just clicking here and switching your output color space, you're able to say have deliverables for HDR, SDR, and all the different formats that you might need. Okay, so if I uncheck the automatic color management here, as you can see, all right, and in the output color space, we can change that. Say you are doing P3 DCI, okay, for digital cinema, or you want to change it to a different setup, say like a P3 D65 ST 2084 4000 nits. Okay, so very bright display. All right, so we can change it to that color space, and then boom. Okay, so now what's happening is that remember that this is meant to be viewed on that display. Now this being Rec 709 Gamma 2.4, it would not output it correctly. But what would happen is if you viewed, okay, once you did that output color space to this one and you had the correct display, if you viewed it on that display, you will see that basically your Rec 709 output color space would be exactly identical to your P3 D65. Okay, 4000 nits output color space. Okay, so that is the beauty with the color management tab here, is that by the flick of a switch, you can basically just literally output it to a different color space, just like that, for different deliverables. Okay, so that is it for this tutorial number 4. This is very, very important, especially the last part we talked about, because I feel that a lot of people skip on color management, and it's something so important because color management allows you to start, okay, before you start your grade, to really take your footage to the ideal spot and then take it from there. Make all the creative choices and adjustments that you need. But first you want to transform it, okay? So from your standard log, your log clips to your Rec 709, and then take care of it after and do all your creative grades and really add all the different elements that you might need. Okay, so that is very, very important. Once again, all of the things that I'm talking about, they're in the book, in the DaVinci Resolve tutorials, so you can just check the link in my bio and you can see that you can find all the source material as well and follow along. Okay, I hope this tutorial helped, and let me know if you have any questions, and please like the video, and I will see you on lesson number 5. See you on the next one.